Hello, I'm Kathy Venter. My life-size figurative ceramic sculptures will be featured in a solo exhibition entitled Life at the Gardiner Museum in Toronto for the summer of 2013. There'll be 6 installations of over 30 sculptures with accompanying architectural components. It'll be installed in their new spacious facility for contemporary ceramics. I'm excited to stage a show of this scale and content at the Gardiner Museum. I don't think of my work in terms of individual completed pieces. The ideas in one work will flow over into the next and inform the development there. All my work is one process that will never probably reach completion. It is this process that interests me. I'm satisfied with that. The debate around postmodernism, by some referred to as metamodernism, relates in some aspects to what my intentions are with the series MetaNarrative. I have come into the visual debate on metamodernism from the margins, working unaware of the philosophy around this, yet embracing the realization that my sculpture has never fitted into the conceptual work made during postmodernism. With this movement's focus on irony, cynicism, and the avoidance of belief in any system, spiritual, religious, political, or cultural. I believe the well-made object by the artist has an intrinsic value and is the preferred method for extending the language of art. In the process of making sculpture, new things are discovered. This growth and transference cannot be accomplished by an intermediary, a technician or equipment used to execute the ideas of the artist. Artists today often search for inspiration in obscure influences and avoid re-evaluating the accomplished examples achieved in the great periods of classical Rome, Egypt, Greece, the European Renaissance, and the Sung Dynasty in China. I am interested in reinterpreting the integrity, meaning, and value in historic art in my own contemporary context. In MetaNarrative, I address how our view of meaning and the relevance of the events and accomplishments of the past change with the fluidity of societies and cultures. Cultural dialogues are living dialogues with our history, and I use myth, ritual, and spiritual concepts as the positive act of choice in this dialogue. This establishes our stories and abstract concepts as a judgment of reality. In other words, I don't have a strong grip on reality. I keep sliding off into beauty and truth. The 5 series in this exhibition have their initial concepts drawn from the great stories of our humanity, stories of myth, religion, ritual, and legend. At the same time, these sculptures are equally derived from my immediate surroundings and experiences on Salt Spring Island. I'm creating a story within a story, so to speak. These series weave ideas with sources other than surface reality. I am rethinking how to tell the stories of today without overlooking the rich visual and conceptual history of the past. The past and present are always in flux. Mythology cannot be recreated. It has to be reinterpreted. But yet it shares universals that are always there through time. As a South African, the issues of the day have influenced my artwork more than contemporary sculpture has. The experiential knowledge of living with such violence, poverty, and suppression has and will always inform my artwork. It afforded my work a respect for context and truth, and my work is different from my peers as a result. The Kudai series is a group of young women from this island. Like the Amaqueta and the stories of their ancient ritual, initiation, circumcision, body paint, and period of isolation before rejoining the tribe as full adult members of the Xhosa society. The gaze these women have is united, all turned to one point. It relates to a small ivory that I saw in the Thompson collection, in which the figures of the apostles, standing close together, were united in their gaze, possibly looking at Christ. Although small, it is a very powerful image. These young women, they're all friends and have been part of this community for most of their lives. When you look at them grouped in the sculpture, they could have lived 10,000 years ago, or they could be from our times. My intention is for these figures to have the appearance of life itself in its own process of coming to be. They're universal. This group actually sums up all my intentions for the sculpture of the past 10 years. It unites the influences and experiences of South Africa, the tribal adolescence out in the Eastern Cape bush, my exposure to the Australian Aboriginal art and body painting of Emily Kame Kangwarai, amongst others, and the spiritual prayer-like rituals that are woven into these experiences, as well as the Tanagra sculptures I viewed in Montreal. Kudai is a glimpse. The military use of the term incorporates the idea of gaining a lot of information in one quick glance. In the sculpture, these are no longer historical young women from my community, but a perception of truth, a symbolic absolute, and a concentration of power. This is the Immersion series. These sculptures were made from studies of my models underwater. Water refers to another dimension. It's an altered state of consciousness. Figures in water react, of course, differently to sound, light, gravity, and movement. The human experience underwater, it's cocoon-like, as if transformed back to the womb and in a private world of its own. The effect of gravity on the figure is diminished. There is free movement of the limbs, as well as an evidence of pressure from the surrounding water. I'm suggesting baptism in water, and I'm creating a new image by interpreting a religious ritual. In the making of these works, there is a participation in the life of the subject, a view of the collective through the singular, within the silent dialogue between the model and myself. This is the ancient discipline of creating an artwork between artist and model, and it is one which can never be fully explored in face of the limitless diversity of the human form and psyche. The individual, her presence and attitude, is life-affirming, a rounded, full form of an adult woman. In this series, the surface treatment, which is inspired by the terracotta sculptures of Tanagra, becomes a metaphor for the opening and loss of the old crusty layer that used to be the person, to reveal the rounded, full form of an adult woman beneath. This is the Ostraca series. The name Ostraca is derived from a word used for shards of pottery that contain a trace of their original art form, and they valued as such. The rendition of the head as a part of the body is valued in the same way. These young women are waitresses and students from my community. I'm making portraits of them in the manner of Roman portraiture of emperors, their wives and generals. But these sculptures help us reassess the value of the person. There are two ways of reconstructing the past, that of the historian and that of the artist. The latter intuitively and mythically aims to define our emotions and experiences in view of the eternal concepts in ancient art. The names in the titles of the heads are the names of places in South Africa that I have loved or that have been meaningful to me, but the people attached to those names are here in Canada.